Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining me again for the second session of the Happier HR. I'm so glad you're here. I know it's early. I appreciate you guys bearing with me as I had something come up that I couldn't change um, later this afternoon. But the topic that I have for you guys today is emotional intelligence, and I want to talk to you about the one tool that since I discovered it, it has helped me so much to understand my emotional intelligence, understand where my emotions are, and also how to effectively use them so I can achieve the goals that I want. So I'm going to share my screen. Hopefully everybody can see that. And so let's start with our topic. So I want to start with our intention. I think it's important that you guys know that the reason why I'm having these goals is for you to explore new opportunities. I want us together to expand our possibilities, and I want us to increase our levels of self-awareness. I truly believe that when you look at those pillars and you look at those different areas of your life, you can increase your levels of happiness and your levels of internal peace. So I went to the Googles and I found the definition of emotional intelligence. I'm sure all of you, and I already knew what emotional intelligence is, but I wanted to start with this definition because of all that I saw out there, I absolutely love it and relate to this one. And it says it's the ability to perceive, demonstrate, control, evaluate, and use emotions to communicate with and relate to others effectively and constructively. What I really like about this definition is that it talks about controlling, evaluating, perceiving, and using our emotions to achieve an end goal, right? Whether it's to, I don't know, help our teams or have our teams, engage in a project or simply help one of our employees or ourselves to achieve the goals that we want. It actually says some experts suggest that emotional intelligence is more important than IQ for success in life. And I truly believe this, especially after I share with you the tool that I've learned. I truly believe that we need higher emotional and more emotional intelligence than IQ to succeed in life. So the tool that I want to share with you guys today is called the model. You have it right here in front of you. And the model to me is a self-awareness tool. That's why I think it's so important to bring it into the emotional intelligence context. It is not a tool that is probably part of the emotional intelligence realm as we know it. But I do believe, and once I learned this tool, it actually encompasses what emotional intelligence talks about. So the letters that you see here, the first thing you see is a C, is a circumstance. What the model says is that in the world, there are things that happen. These are things that are outside of our control, okay? Those are circumstances. Circumstances are always neutral. And that's something important, is something a little different than what we've been taught. I know in our human brain, we think about things being good or bad. It's kind of a black or white situation. What I'm trying to say here is circumstances on their own are completely neutral. They're not good, they're not bad. Okay. Then there are thoughts. And thoughts are just sentences in our mind. And we know from neuroscience that we have, I think it's over 60,000 thoughts that run in our mind on a daily basis. That's a lot of thinking that happens up there. Now, most of those thoughts we're not even aware of. They happen, they come, they go, and we don't even pay attention to what we're thinking, right? Most of the time. So thoughts, again, it's just a sentence in your mind. Then there are feelings. And feelings is just vibrations we feel in our body. It's different from a sensation. A sensation comes from external sources. The feeling comes from internal sources, and we'll talk where they come from in a minute. Then there's actions, and the actions is the things you do, or it could be an action, things you don't do in the world. Then finally, you have results, and results are the outcomes of your actions. The way the model works is that it explains that there are circumstances in the world that happen, these are outside of our control, and those circumstances create a thought. When we have a thought about that circumstance, that's when the circumstance becomes good or bad for us, okay, internally. From that thought, a feeling is generated in our body. That's where our feelings come from. When we get that feeling, then we either take action or we take no action. And then that action or inaction will actually produce the result or the outcome we get in life. Okay, so circumstances, there are circumstances in the world, we have thoughts about them, those thoughts create feelings in our body, the feelings move us into action or inaction, and that action or inaction will create a result. It's important to note that, like I mentioned, circumstances are always neutral. They're not good, they're not bad. They just are. Our thoughts are the things that create the feelings that we feel in our body, those vibrations in our body. And it's also important to know that the thought that we have, that thought, again, is driving the model. So that thought will end in your result. And when I knew that, that kind of blew my mind, because what I'm trying to say is the results you're getting in your life today are completely linked to your thinking. I had no idea until I discovered this 3 years ago. Okay, so I want to talk about two types of models that we have. So you either have an intentional model or you have an unintentional model. If you look at your life today, you are either living on unintentional models or intentional models. And what do I mean by that? Everything that happens in your life can be put into a model, can be classified in a model. So our lives are truly a set of models, right? Our days are a set of models. An unintentional model is that model that we live in that we have no idea we're creating because we're living on what I'm going to call autopilot, meaning we're not really intentional with our thinking. And we just live without paying attention. We're more reactive to what happens to us. Those are unintentional models. It's things that we create. We don't even know we're creating them because we create them out of our auto response to things. Now, there's also intentional models. One thing I gotta say, most people live under the unintentional model most of their lives. Okay? Now, we have the opportunity to create models, results for us intentionally. And that is what I'm going to call the intentional model. And what happens there is that you create, sorry, you create your life intentionally. You go down life paying attention. The last class I mentioned that a lot of us don't leave, with intention and paying attention. In this model, you do. Okay. So I wanted to give you an example of an unintentional model and an intentional model just to bring this a little bit to life for you. This is actually my own example. This happened to me back on summer of 2020 when I was with my last employer and our boss just announced that we were going to do layoffs. As soon as he said that to us, the staff, the HR staff, my thought was, I'm back at my previous company. It was immediate. I'm back at my previous company. And the reason I think what my thought went there is because in my previous employer, we had been through several years of rounds of layoffs. So that was my thought. That thought created frustration in me. I immediately got rushed with frustration. And what did I do? I procrastinated about everything we had to do for the layoffs. I kept thinking about how, these layoffs were at my previous employer, how the situation was there. I kept talking to my peers as to, I cannot believe we're going to this. How are we going to do this? I don't want to do this. I don't want to have these conversations again. What I created from that model, from those actions that I took, was I was reliving the situation at my old employer. And I want you to think about this. I was reliving the situation. I was reliving it in my thoughts. I was reliving it in my emotions about the situation that I went through with my previous employer. So in other words, I was back at my previous company. I was not physically back at my previous company, but I was back mentally and emotionally. I was there. Now, I knew the model and I was able to catch this on time. So I then created what I call an intentional model. How do I want to think about this? What result do I want to create in this situation? And for me, I wanted to serve my people. I wanted to serve my managers and my employees at the highest level that I could. So the circumstance was the same. It was still the layoffs. Then I changed my thought to, I'm here to support my managers and employees during this transition. I'm here to support my managers and employees during this transition. That made me feel purposeful. Okay. And from there, I was able to create and deliver manager training about layoffs for them. I was able to share that training and give it to my peers so they could actually use them with their organizations. I completed all the required paperwork that was needed for the layoffs on time. I had one-on-one conversations, with my managers to prepare them for what that would look like. Many of them had no idea. This was the first time they were going through a layoff situation. And I was able to deliver notifications with my managers and to those employees with empathy, which to me was the ultimate goal. Okay. So my result at the end of the day is that I supported my managers and employees during these layoffs. That was so important to me. So I hope you can see how we can actually move from our unintentional reactive model into a more intentional model that will give us the emotions we need to actually take the actions we want to get the results we want. Okay, so I want to leave you with one thing before we actually go into our conversation portion of the call. But it's this phrase. This is actually a quote from Henry Ford. He said it many, 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 many years ago when he was building his company. And he goes, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. Think about that. Whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. That phrase on its own is the perfect model. It starts with the thinking and then it goes into the action and the result. Okay? So I want you to keep that in mind. Okay, I have one more slide to share with you before we jump into our conversation. I want to let you know that the next conversation we're going to have is not going to be next week. We have Thanksgiving holidays here in the US, so I'm going to be taking the week off. I hope you guys take some time off as well. But we're going to come back December 2nd, the following Friday, at our normal time, noon Eastern Standard Time. And our conversation is going to be around navigating the holidays with family. I know how challenging the holiday season can be for some people, especially around family. So I want to give you some of my thoughts to help you navigate the holidays with family. Okay, well, thank you so much for your attention. I'm going to stop the recording now, and then we're going to go into the conversation. Thanks.